Hi everybody. Today we're going to be continuing with the Westing game. We are now on chapter 3, which is called Tenants In and Out. Upstairs in 3D, Angela Wexler stood on a hassock as still and blank-faced pretty as a store window dummy. Her pale blue eyes stared unblinkingly at the lake. "Turn, dear," said Flora Baumbach, the dressmaker who lived and worked in the smaller apartment on the second floor. Angela pivoted in a slow quarter turn. "Oh!" Startled by the small cry, Flora Baumbach dropped the pen from her pudgy fingers and almost swallowed the 3 in her mouth. "Please be careful, Miss Baumbach. My Angela has very delicate skin." Grace Windsor Wexler was supervising the fitting of her daughter's wedding dress from the beige velvet couch. Above her hung the 24 framed flower prints she had selected and arranged with the greatest of taste and care. She could have been an interior decorator, a good one, too, if it wasn't for the pressing demands of so on and so forth. "Mrs. Baumbach didn't prick me, Mother," Angela said evenly. "I was just surprised to see smoke coming from the Westinghouse chimney." Crawling with slow caution on her hands and knees, Flora Baumbach paused in the search for the drop pin to peer up through her straight gray bangs. Mrs. Wexler set her coffee cup on the driftwood coffee table and craned her neck for a better view. "We must have new neighbors. I'll have to drive up there with a housewarming gift. They may need some decorating advice." "Hey, look! There's smoke coming from the Westinghouse." Again, Turtle was late with the news. "Oh, it's you." Mrs. Wexler was always seemed surprised to see her other daughter, so unlike golden-haired, angel-faced Angela. Flora Baumbach, about to rise with the found pin, quickly sank down again to protect her sore shin in the shag carpeting. She had pulled Turtle's braid in the lobby yesterday. "Otis Amber says that old man Westing's thinking corpse is rotting on an oriental rug." "My, oh my!" Flora Baumbach exclaimed, and Mrs. Wexler clicked her tongue in an irritated. Turtle decided not to go on with the horror story. Not that her mother cared if she got killed or ended up a raving lunatic. "Mrs. Baumbach, could you please hem my witch's costume? I need it for tonight." Mrs. Wexler answered. "Can't you see she's busy with Angela's wedding dress? And why must you wear a silly costume like that? Really, Turtle, I don't know why you insist on making yourself ugly." "It's no sillier than a wedding dress," Turtle snapped back. "Besides, nobody gets married anymore, and if they do, they don't wear silly wedding dresses." She was close to a tantrum. "Besides, who would want to marry that stuck-up know-it-all marshmallow-faced Dr. Denton?" "That's enough of your smart mouth." Mrs. Wexler leaped up, hand ready to strike. Instead, she straightened the framed flower print, patted her fashionable honey-blonde hairdo, and sat down again. She never hit Turtle, but one of these days. Besides, a stranger was present. "Dr. Dear is a brilliant young man," she explained for Flora Baumbach's ears. The dressmaker smiled politely. "Angela will soon be Angela Dear. Isn't that a precious name?" The dressmaker nodded. "And then we'll have 2 doctors in the family. Now where do you think you're going?" Turtle was at the front door. "Downstairs to tell Daddy about the smoke coming from the Westinghouse." "Come back this instant. You know your father operates in the afternoon. Why don't you go to your room and work on stock market reports or whatever you do in there?" "Some room. It's even too small for a closet." "I'll hem your witch's costume, Turtle," Angela offered. Mrs. Wexler beamed on her perfect child draped in white. "What an angel." Crow's clothes were black, her skin dead white. She looked severe. Rigid, in fact. Rigid and righteously severe. No one could have guessed that under the stern faceade her stomach was doing flip-flops as Dr. Wexler cut out a corn. Staring down at the fine lines of pink scalp that showed through the podiatrist's thinning light brown hair did nothing to ease her queasiness. So, softly humming a hymn, she settled her gaze on the north window. "Smoke! Watch it!" Jake Wexler almost cut off her little toe along with the corn. Unaware of the near amputation, the cleaning woman stared at the Westinghouse. "If you will just sit back," Jake began, but his patient did not hear him. She must have been a handsome woman at one time, but life had used her harshly. Her faded hair, knotted in a tight bun on the nape of her gaunt neck, glinted gold-red in the light. Her profile was fine, marred only by the jut of her clenched jaw. "Well, let's get on with it. Friday was his busy day. He had phone calls to make. Please sit back, Mrs. Crow. I'm almost finished." "What?" Jake gently replaced her foot on the chair's pedestal. "I've seen you hurt your shin." "What?" For an instant their eyes met, then she looked away. A shy creature, or a guilty one. Crow averted her face when she spoke. "Your daughter Turtle kicked me," she muttered, staring once again at the Westinghouse. "That's what happens when there's no religion in the home. Sandy says Westing's corpse is up there rotting away on an oriental rug, but I don't believe it. If he's truly dead, then he's roasting in hell. We are sinners, all." "What do you mean his corpse is rotting on an oriental rug? Some kind of Persian rug? Maybe a Chinese rug?" Mr. Hu joined his son at the glass side wall of the fifth-floor restaurant. And why were you wasting precious time listening to an overaged delivery boy with an overactive imagination, when you should have been studying? It was not a question. Doug's father never asked questions. Don't shrug at me. Go study. Sure, Dad. Doug jogged off through the kitchen. It was no use arguing that there was no school tomorrow, just track practice. He jogged down the back stairs. No matter what excuse he gave, go study, his father would say. Go study. He jogged into the Who's rear apartment, stretched out on the bare floor, and repeated go study to 20 sit-ups. Only 2 customers were expected for the dinner hour. Shin Who's restaurant could seat 100. Mr. Who slammed the reservation's book shut, pressed a hand to the pain in his ample stomach, unwrapped a chocolate bar and devoured it quickly before acid etched another ulcer. Back home again, is he? Well, Westing won't get off so easy this time, not on his life. A small, delicate woman in a long white apron stood in silence before the restaurant's east window. She stared longingly into the boundless gray distance as if far, far on the other side of Lake Michigan lay China. Sandy McSuthers saluted as the maroon Mercedes swung around the curved driveway and came to a stop at the entrance. He opened the car door with the ceremony reserved only for Judge J.J. Ford. Look up there, Judge. There's smoke coming from the Westinghouse. A tall black woman in a tailored suit, her short clipped hair touched with gray, slipped out from behind the wheel, handed the car keys to the doorman, and cast a disinterested glance at the house on the hill. They say nobody's up here, just the corpse of old man Westing rotting away on an oriental rug, Sandy reported as he hoisted a full briefcase from the trunk of the car. Do you believe in ghosts, Judge? There is certain to be more rational explanation. You're right, of course, Judge. Sandy opened the heavy glass door and followed the judge's heels through the lobby. I was just repeating what Otis Amber said. Otis Amber is a stupid man, if not downright mad. J.J. Ford hurried into the elevator. She should not have said that. Not her. Not the first black, the first woman to have been elected into the judgeship in the state. She was tired after a trying day. That was it. Or was it? So Sam Westing has come home at last. Well, she could sell the car, take out a bank loan, pay him back, in cash. But would he take it? Please don't repeat what I said about Otis Amber, Mr. McSuthers. Don't worry, Judge. The doorman escorted her to the door of apartment 4D. What you tell me is strictly confidential. And it was. J.J. Ford was the biggest tipper in Sunset Towers. I saw some Chris Theodorakis was too excited to stutter out the news to his brother. One arm shot out and twisted up over his head. Dumb arm. Theo squatted next to the wheelchair. Listen, Chris, I'll tell you about that haunted castle on the hill. His voice was soothing and hushed in mystery. Somebody's up there, Chris, but nobody is there. Just rich Mr. Westing, and he's dead. Dead as a squashed June bug and rotting away on a moth-eaten oriental rug. Chris relaxed as he always did when his brother told him a story. Theo was good at making up stories. And the worms are crawling in and out of the dead man's skull, in and out of his ear holes, his nose holes, his mouth holes, in and out of all his holes. Chris laughed, then quickly composed his face. He was supposed to look scared. Theo leaned closer, and high above the putrid corpse, a crystal chandelier is tinkling. It tinkles and twinkles, but not a breath of air stirs in that gloomy tomb of a room. Gloomy tomb of a room. Theo would make a good writer someday, Chris thought. He wouldn't spoil his wonderful spooky Halloween story by telling him about the real person up there, the one with the limp. So Chris sat quietly, his body at ease, and heard about ghosts and ghouls and purple waves, and smiled at his brother with pure delight. A smile that could break your heart, Sidel Pulaski, the tenant of 3C, always said, but no one had paid attention to Sidel Pulaski. Sidel Pulaski struggled out of the taxi large end first. She was not a heavy woman, just wide-hipped from the years of secretarial sitting. If only there was a ladylike way to get out of a cab. Her green, rhinestone-studded glasses slipped down her fleshy nose as she grappled with the tall triangular package and a stuffed shopping bag. If only that lazy driver would lend her a hand. Not for a nickel tip, he wouldn't. The cabbie slammed the back door, sped around the curved driveway, narrowly missing the Mercedes that Sandy was driving to the parking lot. At least the never went there when you need him doorman and propped open the front door. Not that he ever helped her, or noticed her, for that matter. Nobody ever noticed. Sidel Pulaski limped through the lobby. She could be carrying a high-powered rifle in the package and no one would notice. She had moved to Sunset Towers hoping to meet elegant people, but no one had invited her in for so much as a cup of tea. No one paid any attention to her except the poor crippled boy whose smile could break your heart, and that bratty kid with the braid. She'll be sorry she kicked her in the shin. Juggling her load, earrings jingling and charm bracelet jangling, Sidel Pulaski unlocked the several locks to the apartment 3C and bolted the door behind her. There'd be fewer burglaries around here if people listened to her about putting in deadbolt locks, but nobody listened. Nobody cared. On the plastic-covered dining table, she set out contents of the shopping bag. 6 cans of enamel, paint thinner, and brushes. She unwrapped the long package and leaned 4 wooden crutches against the wall. The sun was setting over the parking lot, but Sidel Pulaski did not look out her back window. From the side window, smoke could be seen rising from the Westinghouse, but Sidel Pulaski did not notice. No one ever notices Sidel Pulaski, she muttered. But now they will. Now they will. Chapter 4. The Corpse Found. The hallway moon was full. Except for her receding chin, Turtle Wexler looked every inch the witch. Her dark, unbraided hair streaming wild in the wind from under her peaked hat, a putty wart pasted on her small beaked nose. If she only could fly to the Westinghouse on a broomstick instead of scrambling over rocks on all 4, what with all she had to carry. Under the long black cape, the pockets of her jeans bulged with necessities for the night's dangerous vigil. Doug, who had already reached the top of the cliff and had taken his station behind the maple on the lawn. The track star was chosen timekeeper because he could run faster than anyone in the state of Wisconsin. Here she comes, it's about time. Shivering knee-deep in damp leaves that couldn't do his leg muscles much good, he readied his thumb on the button of the stopwatch. Turtle squinted into the blackness that lay within the open French doors. Open, as though someone or something was expecting her. There's no such thing as a ghost. Besides, all you have to do was speak friendly-like to them. Ghosts, like dogs, know when a person's scared. Ghosts, or worse, Otis Amber had said. Well, not even the worst could hurt Turtle Wexler. She was pure of heart and deed. She only kicked shins in self-defense so that it couldn't count against her. She wasn't scared. She was not scared. Hurry up! That was Doug from behind the tree. At $2 a minute, 25 minutes would pay for a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. She could stay all night. She was prepared. Turtle checked her pockets. 2 sandwiches, Sandy's flask filled with orange pop, a flashlight, her mother's silver cross to ward off vampires. The putty wart on her nose, soaked in Angela's perfume in the event that she was locked up with a stinking corpse, was clogging her nostrils with sticky sweetness. Turtle took a deep breath of the chill night air and flinched with pain. She was afraid of dentists, not ghosts. Or, don't think about purple waves, think about $2 a minute. Now, 1, 2, 3, 3.5, go! Doug checked his stopwatch. 9 minutes, 10 minutes, 11 minutes. Suddenly a terrified scream, a young girl's scream, pierced the night. Should he go in, or was this one of the brat's tricks? Another scream, closer. Eee! Clutching the bunched cape around her waist, Turtle came hurtling out of the Westinghouse. Eee! Turtle had seen the corpse in the Westinghouse, but it was not rotting, and it was not sprawled on an oriental rug. The dead man was tucked in a 4-poster bed. A throbbing whisper, purple, purple, or was it turtle, turtle? Whatever it was scary. It beckoned her to the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, and maybe it was a dream. No, it couldn't be. She ached all over from the tumble down the stairs. The moon was down, the window dark. Turtle lay in the narrow bed in her narrow room, waiting. Dark. Still dark. Waiting. At last, slow morning crept up the cliff and raised the Westinghouse, the house of whispers, the house of death. $2 times 12 minutes equals $24. Thud! The morning newspaper was flung against the front door. Turtle tiptoed through the sleeping apartment to retrieve it and climbed back into bed. The dead man was staring at her from the front page. The face was younger, the short beard darker, but it was he, all right. Sam Westing found dead. Found? No one else knew about the bedded down corpse except Doug, and he had not believed her. Then who found the body? The whisperer? Samuel W. Westing, the mysterious industrialist who disappeared 13 years ago, was found dead in his Westington mansion last night. He was 65 years old. The only child of immigrant parents, orphaned at the age of 12, self-educated, hard-working, Samuel Westing saved his laborer's wages and bought a small paper mill. From these meager beginnings, he built the giant Westing Paper Products Corporation and founded the city of Westington to house his thousands of workers and their families. His estate is estimated to be worth over $200 million. Turtle read that again. $200 million. Wow. When asked the secret of his success, the industrialist always replied, clean living, hard work, and fair play. Westing set his own example. He neither drank nor smoked and never gambled. Yet he was a dedicated gamesman and a master at chess. Turtle had been in the game room. That's where she had picked up the billiard cube she had carried up the stairs as a weapon. A great patriot, Sam Westing was famous for his fun-filled 4th of July celebrations. Whether disguised as Ben Franklin or a lowly drummer boy, he always acted a role in an elaborately staged pageant which he wrote and directed. Perhaps best remembered was his surprise portrayal of Betsy Ross. Games and feasting followed the pageant, and at sunset, Mr. Westing put on his Uncle Sam costume and set off fireworks from his front lawn. The spectacular pyrotechnic display could be viewed 30 miles away. Fireworks! So that's what was in those boxes stamped Danger Explosives, stacked in the ground floor storeroom. What a pyrotechnic display that would make if they all went off at the same time. The Paper King's later years were marred by tragedy. His only daughter, Violet, drowned on the eve of her wedding, and 2 years later his troubled wife deserted their home. Although Mr. Westing obtained a divorce, he never remarried. 5 years later, he was sued by an inventor over the rights of the disposable paper diaper. On his way to court, Samuel Westing and his friend, Dr. Sidney Sykes, were involved in a near-fatal automobile accident. Both men were hospitalized with severe injuries. Sykes resumed his Westington medical practice and the post of county coroner, but Westing disappeared from sight. It was rumored, but never confirmed, that he controlled the vast Westing Paper Products Corporation from a private island in the South Seas. He is still listed as a chairman of the board. We are as surprised as you are and deeply saddened, as spokesman for Julian R. Eastman, president and chief executive officer of the corporation, stated when informed that Westing's body was found in his lakeside home. Dr. Sykes' response was, a tragic end to a tragic life. Sam Westing was truly a great and important man. The funeral will be private. The executor of the Westing estate said the deceased requested that, in place of flowers, donations be sent to the blind bowlers of America. Turtle turned the page of the newspaper, but that was all. That was all? There was no mention of how the body was found. There was no mention of the envelope propped on the bedside table on which a shaky hand had scrawled, "If I am found dead in bed." She had been edging her way against the four-poster bed, reading the words in the beam of the flashlight, when she felt the hand, the waxy, dead hand that lay on the red, white, and blue quilt. Through her scream, she had seen the white-bearded face. She remembered running, tripping over the billiard cue, falling down the stairs, denting Sandy's flask, and dropping everything else. There was no mention of 2 suspicious peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the premises, or a flashlight, or a silver cross on a chain. There was no mention of prowlers, no mention of anyone having seen a witch, no mention of footprints on the lawn, track shoes, and sneakers size 6. Oh well, she had nothing to fear, other than losing her mother's cross. Old Mr. Westing probably died of a heart attack, or pneumonia. It was drafty in there. Turtle hid the folded newspaper in her desk drawer, counted her black and blue marks in the mirror, 7, dressed and set out to find the 4 people who knew she had been in the Westing house last night. Doug Hu, Theo Theodorakis, Otis Amber, and Sandy. They owed her $24. At noon, the 62-year-old delivery boy began his rounds. He had 16 letters to deliver from E.J. Plum, attorney at law. Otis Amber knew what the letter said because one was addressed to him. As a named beneficiary in the estate of Samuel W. Westing, your attendance is required at the South Library of the Westing House tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the reading of the will. It means old man Westing left you some money, he explained. Just sign this receipt here. What do you mean, what does position mean? It means position, like a job. Most receipts have that to make sure the right person gets the right letter. Grace Windsor Wexler wrote housewife, crossed it out, wrote decorator, crossed it out, and wrote heiress. Then she wanted to know, who else, how many, how much? I ain't allowed to say nothing. The other heirs were too stunned by the unexpected legacy to bother him with questions. Madame Hu marked an X, and her husband filled in her name and position. Theo wanted to sign the receipt for his brother, but Chris insisted on doing it himself. Slowly, taking great pains, he wrote Christos Theodorakis, birdwatcher. By the time the sun had set behind the Sunset Towers parking lot, Otis Amber, deliverer, had completed his rounds. Chapter 5. 16 Heirs. The marble sky lay heavy on the gray lake. Oh my God. On the gray Great Lake when Grace Windsor Wexler parked her car in the western driveway and strode up the walk ahead of her daughters. Her husband had refused to come, but no matter. Recalling family gossip about a rich uncle, maybe it was a great uncle, anyway, his name was Sam, Grace had convinced herself that she was the rightful heir. Jake was Jewish, so he could not possibly be related to Samuel W. Westing. I can't imagine what became of my silver cross, she said, fingering the gold link necklace under her mink stole as she paused to appraise the big house. You know, Angela, we could have the wedding right here. Turtle, where are you wandering off to now? The letter said... Never mind. Turtle preferred not to explain how she knew the library could be entered from the French doors on the lawn. The front door was opened by Crow. Although the Sunset Towers cleaning woman always wore black, here it reminded Grace Wexler to dab at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. This was a house of mourning. The silent Crow helped Angela with her coat and nodded approval of her blue velvet dress with white collar and cuffs. I'll keep my furs with me, Grace said. She did not want to be taken for one of the poor relatives. Seems rather chilly in here. Turtle, too, complained of the chill, but her mother tugged off her coat to reveal a fluffy, ruffly pink party dress 2 sizes too large and 4 inches too long. It was one of Angela's hand-me-downs. Please sit anywhere, the lawyer said without glancing from the envelopes he was sorting at the head of the long library table. Mrs. Wexler took the chair to his right and motioned to her favorite. Angela sat down next to her mother, removed a trousseau towel from a large tapestry shoulder bag, and took up embroidering the monogram D. Slumped in the third chair, Turtle pretended she had never seen the paneled library with its bare and dusty shelves. Suddenly, she sat up with a start. An open coffin draped in a bunting rested on a raised platform in the far corner of the room. In it lay the dead man, looking exactly as she had found him, except now he was dressed in the costume of Uncle Sam, including the tall hat. Between the waxy hands folded across his chest lay her mother's silver cross. Grace Wexler was too busy greeting the next heir to notice. Why, Dr. D, I had no idea you'd be here. But of course, you'll soon be a member of the family. Come, sit next to your bride-to-be. Turtle, you'll have to move down. D. Denton Deer, always in a hurry, brushed a quick kiss on Angela's cheek. He was still wearing his hospital whites. I didn't know this was a pajama party, Turtle said, relinquishing her chair and stomping to the far end of the table. The next heir, short and round, entered timidly, her lips pressed together in an impish smile that curved up to what must be pointed ears under her straight-cut Sealy hair. Hello, Mrs. Baumbach, Angela said. I don't think you've met my fiancé, Denton Deer. You're a lucky man, Mr. Deer. Dr. Deer, Mrs. Wexler corrected her, puzzled by the dressmaker's presence. Yes, of course. I'm so sorry. Sensing that she was unwelcome at this end of the room, Flora Baumbach walked on. Hi, mind if I sit next to you? I promise not to pull your braid. That's okay. Turtle was hunched over the table, her small chin resting between her crossed arms. From there, she could see everything except the coffin. Grace Wexler dismissed the next heir with an audible tongue click. That distasteful little man didn't even have the sense to remove his silly aviator's cap. And what in heaven's name was he doing here? The delivery boy shouted, Let's give a cheer, Otis Amber is here. Turtle laughed, Flora Baumbach tittered, and Grace Wexler again clicked her tongue. Doug Who and his father entered silently, but Sandy gave a hearty hi and a cheery wave. He wore his doorman's outfit, but unlike Otis Amber, carried his hat in his hand. Grace Windsor Wexler was no longer surprised at the odd assortment of heirs. Household workers, all, or former employees, she decided. The rich always reward servants in their wills, and her Uncle Sam was a generous man. Are your parents coming? She asked the older Theodoracus boy as he wheeled his brother into the library. They weren't invited, Theo replied. It's... Chris announced. What did he say? He said it's snowing, Theo and Flora Baumbach explained at the same time. The heirs watched helplessly as the invalid's thin frame was suddenly torn and twisted by convulsions. Only the dressmaker rushed to his side. I know, she simpered. You were trying to tell us about the itsy-bitsy snowflakes. Theo moved her away. My brother is not an infant, and he's not retarded. So please, no more baby talk. Blinking away tears, Flora Baumbach returned to her seat, the elfin smile still painted on her pained face. Some stared at the afflicted child with morbid fascination, but most turned away. They didn't want to see. Pyramidal tract involvement, Dear whispered, trying to impress Angela with his diagnosis. Angela, her face a mirror to the boy's suffering, grabbed her tapestry bag and hurried out of the room. Why, hello, Judge Ford, proud of her liberalism. Grace Windsor Wexler stood and leaned over the table to shake the black woman's hand. She must be here in some legal capacity, or maybe her mother was a household maid. But one thing Grace was certain, J.J. Ford could be no more related to Samuel W. Westing than Mr. Who. Can't we get started? Mr. Who asked, hoping to get back in time to watch the football game on television. I must return to my restaurant, he announced loudly. Sunday is our busy day, but we are still accepting reservations. Shin Hu's restaurant on the 5th floor of Sunset Tower, specializing in... Doug tugged at his father's sleeves. Not here, Dad. Not in front of the dead. What dead? Mr. Who had not noticed the open coffin. Now he did. Oh! The lawyer explained that several heirs had not yet arrived. My wife is not coming, said Mr. Who. Grace said Dr. Wexler was called away on an emergency operation. An emergency Packers game in Green Bay, Turtle confided in Flora Bombach, who scrunched up her shoulders and tittered behind a plump hand. But we are still waiting for one. No, 2 more, the lawyer said, fumbling with his papers, his hands shaking under the strict scrutiny of the judge. Judge Ford had recognized E.J. Plum. Several months ago, he had argued before her court, bumbling to the point of incompetence. Why, she wondered, was a young, inexperienced attorney chosen to handle an estate of such importance? Come to think of it, what was she doing here? Curiosity? Perhaps, but what about the rest of them, the other tenants of Sunset Towers? Don't anticipate, Josie Joe. Wait for Sam Westing to make the first move. Light footsteps were heard in the hall. It was only Angela, who blushed and, hugging her tapestry bag close to her body, returned to her seat. The heirs waited. Some chatted with neighbors, some looked up at the gilt ceiling, some studied the pattern of the oriental rug. Judge Ford stared at the table, at Theo Theodorakis' hand. A calloused hand, a healed cut, a shining slash of a burn on the deep bronze skin. She lowered her hands to her lap. His Greek skin was darker than her black skin. Thump, thump, thump. Someone was coming. Or were there 2 of them? In came Crow. Eyes lowered, without a word, she sat down next to Otis Amber. A dark cloud passed from her face as she eased off a tight shoe under the table. Thump, thump, thump. The last expected heir arrived. Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I haven't quite adjusted to this. Sidel Pulaski waved a gaily painted crutch in the air, tottered, and set it down quickly with another thump. This crutch, what a horrible word, but I guess I'll have to get used to it. She pursed her bright red mouth, painted to the fullness beyond the narrow line of her lips, trying to suppress a smile of triumph. Everyone was staring. She knew they would notice. What happened, Pulaski? Otis Amber asked. Did you pull Turtle's braid again? More likely she visited Wexler the foot butcher, Sandy suggested. Sidel was pleased to hear someone come to her defense with a loud click of the tongue. She had not even blinked a false eyelash at those offensive remarks. Poise, they call it. It's really nothing, she reported bravely. Just some sort of wasting disease. But pity me not, I shall live out my remaining time enjoying each precious day to the full. Thump, thump, thump. The secretary kept to the side of the room, avoiding the oriental rug that might cushion the thump of her purple-striped crutch as she made her way to the end of the table. Her exaggerated hips were even more exaggerated by the wavy stripes of the white on her purple dress. Purple waves, Turtle thought. Denton Deer almost fell off his chair, leaning back to follow this most unusual case. First she favored her left leg, then her right. What is it? Whispered Mrs. Wexler. The intern did not have the least notion, but he had to say something. Traveling sporadic mystosis, he pronounced quickly, and glanced at Angela. Her eyes remained on her embroidery. The lawyer stood, documents in hand, and cleared his throat several times. Grace Windsor Wexler, her chin tilted in the regal pose of an heiress, gave him her full attention. 1 minute, please. Sidel Pulaski propped her purple and white striped crutch against the table and then removed a shorthand pad and pencil from the handbag. Thank you for waiting. You may begin. All right, we're going to end it there for right now. Tune in next time to find out what is in the will, and then we can see why these specific people were the heirs to Samuel Westing's will. Join us next time. Bye!